What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Get Weird with your host, me, Brittany Barbieri. I hope everyone had a wonderful and magical Christmas. I have a story today that I am excited to share, and I'm going to tell you how I got there in just a second. I want to remind you before I dive into this case that this will be the last episode of this podcast until I return in January. So have a wonderful New Year and New Year's Eve. I cannot believe that we are stopping 2025 and coming to a close and jumping into 2026. It's going to be so exciting, and I'm so excited to see what it has to offer to each and every one of you. And I can't thank you enough for all the love and support of listening to the podcast. So I'm very happy about that. So the next episode in the new year will air, the first episode, in the new year will air on Friday, January 9th. And I'm very excited about that. We're stomping into the new year with a Bigfoot case. So if you like Bigfoot, feel free to listen to that one. If you want to skip Bigfoot, I understand. But I have a fun case, and I want to share it because it's one that really fascinated me over the years. It really humanized Bigfoot in a way that I never thought possible, hearing about this case. And the woman remained anonymous after telling her story because of the ridicule that she got after sharing her experience, because she really believed that they were ancient people and humans and we needed to leave them alone. I will leave it there. It's a very interesting story. I think you guys will enjoy it. Anyway, so how I got to the case I want to talk about today. It's a very well documented case. It's one of the earliest poltergeist cases ever documented. And why it's so important and why I think it matters is because I went down this rabbit hole. I was online and I had been seeing this alleged post that Mr. What's-It from Stranger Things was actually fueled by a original case that took place in the 1960s at a school in, I believe, Wyoming, of all these different children seeing the same creature or the same person thing and whispering very bad things to them. Now, it was known as Yellow Echo. So I was like, wait a minute, I've never heard of this case before. I got to dive into this. This is kind of cool because obviously we know about the famous alien case where they came down and met like 30 some odd children. So, you know, children are very easy to talk to and their brain is still very open and their imagination is just soaring. So in my head, especially as a mom, I see my kids' imagination. I'm like, gosh, I love that. You know, they give me some creativity. I was like, well, I want to know what the truth is behind this. So after much research, I have found that there's no actual reliable source that this story was even real. Now, could have been real. I don't know. I haven't dug deep enough into it to find out if there is actual police records or, you know, any kind of significance in an investigation behind it to find out if there is any truth to it. From what I've gathered, it seems like it was more or less a compilation of different cases where kids had seen like a person or a being, kind of like Slender Man, you know what I mean? And they started talking about this being and that it has all this information and it's providing them all this information and blah, 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 blah. But it's like more one-off cases instead of one significant case that affected an entire school, right? Over 30 some odd kids, according to the alleged posts online. So from what I've researched, it would appear that this case perhaps is more or less just like an online urban legend that has spread, but I could be wrong. And I'm totally cool if I'm wrong, because if that story is 1000% real, that is so cool. And I want to know more because just the name alone, Yellow Echo, is creepy. Okay. So that particular case sent me on a rabbit hole of learning about all these other incidences where the younger generations had said seen something, or multiple kids within the same kind of consciousness were experiencing the same types of phenomenon. And I wanted to discuss a particular case because when we investigate things, a lot of times nowadays we rely on the internet to guide us, right? So we're like checking police records, we're checking maybe historical or librarian records, right? Like the library might have some type of historical newspaper or some type of documentation that we can look up and we can apply it to our research. At least that's what I do. I don't just believe what Google tells me, like through Google AI or what ChatGPT tells me. I like to go through and actually find links with photographs of actual newspaper clippings, and then I spiral because then I'm like, well, what else was happening at this time, and how else could this be, possibly a huge phenomenon that was taking place within everyone's mind at the time because everyone was scared, and so forth and so forth. And so why the case that I want to talk about is so important is because there were no police records. There was no investigation into it in the way that we would have thought there would have been in a particular phenomenon or paranormal-esque case. And when these types of cases happen, in some particular incidences, people will go to the police department, like the Mothman incident, right? They will go to the police department. They will go to a private investigator. They will go to people that will make a log of this or write about it, and then they'll publish that. Well, then that becomes online information because there's a book about it or a journal about it or whatever, right? And so in this particular case, and this case is known as the Wesley Poltergeist of 1716, there is no police record. There are no deep investigative, teams that have contributed this buckets of information for us to go through. In fact, it's just the opposite. It was the family themselves and the servants that lived in the house with them actually writing this information down, and it was preserved historically for us to read. So I'm not saying that there isn't an incident where a yellow echo situation could be happening, but it's not known to the public as far as news channels, investigators, or, police department. Okay. It could just be written down by these kids, and the school and the parents are handling it without getting a lot of media attention. Therefore, it's not really going to be on Google. It's the same thing I was trying to break down with IMDb. Everybody thinks, well, if the person is in the movie, it's going to be on IMDb and it's going to tell me that that person's in that movie. No, not necessarily. IMDb works very interesting. If the person is making a celebrity cameo, then they don't want them putting that information into the IMDb until that movie airs, right? Because they want their audience to be surprised. They want their audience to be like, oh my gosh, look who's in this movie. Brad Pitt has done it. Several actors have done it. Tom Hiddleston has done it over the years. And so a lot of people don't think about that. They think, well, if it's on IMDb, it's going to tell me fact. It's going to tell me who's in this movie. Not necessarily. Not if they're making a cameo appearance. And the directors, the producers, and everyone involved do not want them to do that. So then they make that agreement. It's an NDA. And then they just don't tell anyone. And then when the movie comes out and everyone's already seen it, the surprise is over, then they put their credit into IMDb. So again, there's so many ins and outs when it comes to researching and finding out these stories. And a lot of people just think that Google's going to give them the information, or the AI generated information bots that go out there and scan the internet and give you what you need. They're going to tell you. Well, in this particular case, we're going back to 1716. So we're looking at like one of the earliest paranormal cases that were not investigated by EMFs. There was no night vision cameras, right? We're talking about somebody sitting down with ink at candlelight, writing family letters that have officially survived for centuries to tell us this early case of poltergeist activity, which I think is so fascinating because it shows you how far back this stuff has been going on, and we just don't realize it. So we're going back now to England, winter of 1716. One of the earliest documented poltergeist cases in history, known as the Wesley Poltergeist, or Epworth, the rectory haunting. So this is not one of those stories that has just been passed down by word of mouth. This particular case exists solely and only because the people involved took the time to write their accounts down in diaries and in letters, which is huge. So the location that this actually took place was Epworth Rectory in Lincolnshire, England. And it was home to Reverend Samuel Wesley, his wife Suzanne, their children, and the household servants. I'm just trying to give you an idea here. One of those children was John Wesley, who would later go on to fund the Methodist movement. Fun little tidbitty there. So this wasn't like just an isolated particular case or like a cottage, right? Or like one forgotten family. We're talking about an entire household who all wrote letters and writings about this incident, and they were all preserved. I mean, that is huge. It all started in December of 1716 during the winter months, and it lasted for 2 months into January of 1717. At first, the family documented only hearing knocking sounds, um, not necessarily random either, or random creaks. It was deliberate knocks. There was rhythm to it. It repeated, sometimes responding when spoken to it, and to the point to where the children eventually gave it a name. And when it would happen and it would respond to them, they just started calling it Old Jeffrey, which I think is so funny. It's like, oh, Old Jeffrey's knocking again. That guy. Who's he knocking to? It's just crazy to me. Don't name him. Do not name him. Like, you're officially just saying, sure, come on in, come live with us, Old Jeffrey. But really, it's like Satanic Joe. You know what I mean? Like, just don't do it. Don't welcome him in. You don't know who that is. I apologize too, really quick. I am getting over being sick. So if my voice is rough, it is because I have been rough for the last couple of weeks. Anyway, so according to the letters written by Susanna Wesley, his wife, later referenced by their son, John Wesley, the household experienced loud knocks on the walls and floors, footsteps, moving through rooms where no one was there at all. Like, they looked around, nobody was there, identified. Scratching, here's where it gets weird. Scratching, groaning, and dragging sounds. I mean, no thank you. That's when I would have been like, I could deal with the knocking, but, the footsteps, whatever. But groaning, scratching, and now dragging, I'm out. We'll figure it out. We'll build a new homestead. We're going to figure this out somewhere else. Objects rattling, and then bottles breaking. Again, like extreme energy. The sounds seem to also follow the family members between rooms. So, like, if they left a room, it then followed them into the next room. Like, why are you leaving me? Don't leave me. Hello. So, like, oh my gosh, can't leave this guy. I mean, think about trying to take a bath. You can't. He's all Old Jeffrey. These events were reportedly witnessed by multiple people, including the servants, and the servants actually wrote it down as well. And interestingly enough, Samuel Wesley, the father of everyone, was really skeptical at first. Didn't think it was, he would like poo-poo it off. Like, no, it's not what I think it is. Not what it is. Until he couldn't explain it. Until he had an experience then. It was like, okay, no, this is like legit. And wrote about it. The Wesley Poltergeist, it really stands out, not just because of the activity. It's because the way it was documented. So again, I circle back. Even though it's like an urban legend online about this yellow echo, there really could be a case that took place in history that you're just not going to really find out through like Google or Google AI in one quick engine search. You're going to have to actually like do the research through different towns and find out if this actually happened. That takes like a really long time through deep investigations. So with this particular poltergeist case, again, it wasn't passed down. We're not talking about like a campfire story. You know what I'm saying? Like, we actually have personal letters, written testimonies by multiple witnesses, and later references by historical significant figures. This is huge. It's not like we're just talking about something we read online. You know what I'm saying? So the fact of the Epworth case being so profound to the point where they felt the need to write it down, and the fact that we have preserved that writing in that case to this date, I think is really cool. Like, I don't know if the homestead or the location or any surviving family members from that line still exist and know of that story. I would love to meet them. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it would be so cool. Just so cool. I really do. I think it would be really, really, really neat because it marks one of the earliest recorded poltergeist hauntings in English history. And that is so cool to me. I don't know. Now, I'll always flip the script like I always love to do. Let's look at it from the skeptical side. Okay, let's get grounded for a second. Let's be a skeptic, okay? Old buildings make noise, okay? Especially in the winter. So maybe, just like Dad said, Mr. Wesley, The house is just settling, right? Because it's the winter. Also, we're talking, they didn't have TVs. They didn't have electronics. They didn't have a lot of that stuff to entertain their minds. And it's winter. So money, work, got a lot of stuff on the table that adds stress. We also can apply imagination. This can all just amplify the experiences with, in a house and a bunch of kids. I think I heard that too. What if it's this? Oh, it could be that. I'm just saying. So I'm doing the skeptical side for you guys, even though deep down, I'm a believer. Some researchers suspect that one of the children may have been an agitator or a person that caused some of the sounds. I mean, or maybe even exaggerated. Could have just made it more than it was. You know what I mean? Like, a book could have fallen over and be like, I saw this person in this type of weird clothing and he ran and he knocked my book over. Okay, I could totally get that. Children's imaginations fly. They don't want to look like they're scared. Okay. The later retellings of the case became more dramatic than the original letters themselves. Now, I get it from the skeptical side where it's like, was it paranormal? I don't know, because it seems like now the retellings seem a little bit more fluffed than what they really were. I don't know how I feel about it. I think it's just somebody wanting to hype up an old case, right? Or, as we all have seen, when we want to get people interested in the case to actually take the time to read the original literature, we got to get them excited about it. Maybe there was a little fluff to it. I don't know. I can't tell you. I wasn't there. I was not in 16 going through what these people went through. But why this matters today is because the Wesley Poltergeist itself has some important messages really to the paranormal research community, because this was before modern ghost hunting took place. Like, before we created all these crazy ideas of what we think we know about the supernatural. We really still don't have any idea. Before EVP recorders and before social media, before you could just like post something and like everybody sees it, and of course people put comments on it that you don't ever want to see, and then you delete the comments because you're like, that was really rude. Why would you say that? Nobody really has the answer. I digress. Anyway, people were still trying to understand what these experiences meant, and they couldn't always explain them. And it really pushed us outside of our limitations of not relying on AI technology to tell us what to believe, but it pushed us into creating new ways to investigate these types of phenomenons. And I think that's an investigative tactic that we over the years have lost. We have completely forgotten the old techniques of how to investigate these types of phenomenon. And I'm not saying that technology isn't good to advance in to try and help us split through that veil, but I also think it can clutter the noise between us and the veil, and it can remove actually seeing or experiencing what we really need to experience, because we're so reliant on the technology to give us the answers without using the tool that lives within us. Our body is one of the greatest frequencies to pick up on the phenomenon. And if we allowed ourselves to utilize our tool of our body and our mind instead of just focusing on electronics and all these other devices, I mean, they've all changed over the years. And we could do a deep dive into that someday too, about different technologies that have changed and why they changed. But because of the change, they have eliminated some of the factors that helped us in the paranormal, where people are like, I don't think that was a ghost, but you know what I mean? Like, there's so much to it. So this particular case for me is an interesting one because of how many people were involved. And it kind of reminded me of the episode with Henry, where you're kind of seeing like what happened in, I think it was season 4, where you're learning about Henry and being a kid and growing up in his house and what they were experiencing, and people didn't believe them until all of this stuff happened, right? And so, granted, that's a TV show, I get it, but I'm just making a point. That's what brought me back to go, but what about that case? Because that case was interesting, and you have documentation to it that people can actually look up. So if you want to dive into this deeper yourself, which I encourage that you do, look up the Epworth Old Rectory haunting, letters of Suzanne Wesley, writings of John Wesley referencing old Jeffrey, historical summaries of early English poltergeist cases. And those are all available sources for you today that you can type in. So, whether you believe that old Jeffrey was a true restless spirit or an let me rephrase this because when we look at goodness, I could ramble off about old Jeffrey for a little bit, but whether you believe it's a restless spirit or a misunderstood natural phenomenon or something else entirely, like maybe a dimensional being, like whatever your belief is, the Wesley Poltergeist stands as a reminder that the weird didn't begin when the internet started. Okay? It's been knocking at all of our doors for centuries. We just haven't opened the door and stepped out to go look and see and find it for ourselves. We have just relied on the internet to feed us the information right here to our sofa. But really, all of that cool stuff and mystery is out there. So if Stranger Things can remind us of anything, it's about actually going after and finding the truth. You don't see any of those kids. Yeah, it's the 80s, but you don't see any of those kids sitting on the sofa trying to find out who Vecna is. They're all teaming together. They're going out, they're researching. Got Nancy at the library pulling old case files. You got them working together, contacting each other. We're on a case, we're on this. That's investigation. That's the mystery. That's the excitement. You are on an adventure of a discovery of a lifetime. And you're not always going to find it online. So, if you're from Wyoming and you listen to this story and the Yellow Echo case is true and it's just some weird story that got really fabricated and maybe pieces put together into like a mishmash of weird information, but there is some truth to it, share it. Send it my way. I would love to talk about it. I think a lot of these cases are so cool. And it's hard to tell nowadays what's real, what isn't real, and diving into everything. And I'm not one to tell you what to believe. I don't believe that it is my job to tell you what to believe. I just enjoy sharing these incredible cases that make us sit back and go, you know what? This is really interesting. People expect police reports and all this other stuff, but sometimes there's none of that. It's all written down by the person that experienced it. And that's where these stories come from, right? And so you might share the story and they'll be like, but there's no verifiable documentation online about this. Be like, well, you're not going to find it because here's the journal. Like, she didn't upload it and scan in everything onto like a blog, you know? So it all kind of, at least for me, it made sense of the connection of the two, of where you have this incredible early case poltergeist phenomenon that a lot of people don't know about, unless you're in the field. And then you have like cases like Yellow Echo that get people like freaking out. Like, oh, I didn't even know about this. And that's where the Duffer Brothers got their story. No, probably not. I mean, I'm sure they did research and found different cases and pieces and parts. And obviously we all know that it's based off the Montauk. And I would say the Montauk story, right? The incidences that took place. And again, that's another whole podcast all on its own. And how 11 and all of that came to be and all the kids. So there's always a little truth to every urban legend and every story. There's always a little bit of truth. But what that truth is, I don't know until we can read it or see it for ourselves. And in this particular case, thanks to the family, we had written journals and letters about what they were experiencing. And that to me is cooler than anything I could Google or find online at any time, at any place. I hope that you all enjoyed this strange Stranger Things Get Weird with Brittany Barbieri. I just enjoy kind of shooting it out, talking it through, taking my notes that I wrote down and sharing with you guys. I find it all super fascinating. It's a weird world that we live in, and I love just getting weird in it, because why not, right? So before I sign off, I just want to give a shout out to several different companies that are very good friends of mine and are just kicking it. So to give you a couple names to look into as we step into 2026 for some awesome merchandise and really cool things to look into, we have I Know Squatch. I Know Squatch does amazing. They have this incredible little character for their Bigfoot, and it's like the peekaboo peeker behind the tree. He is just the cutest thing ever. I have so much of their merch. I love them. The owners are fan-freaking-tastic. They have their profile on Etsy. Go check them out. And then I also have my friend Mike, who owns Cryptozooies. They are the adorable cryptid pins. He has different series out. If you go to my Instagram and you go to my link tree, in that link, I also have my particular top picks that are also showcased on his website as a lead ambassador on there. And if you use Brit Investigates, all capital, you get 15% off your purchase. So I encourage it because I love to support them. They are amazing and they do incredible work, and they are all hand sketched by Mike. They're just adorable. Trust me, I will not disappoint. We also have, that I work with, is Decayed Mind Clothing. Amazing artwork that he does. It's so cool. I just got my first package of awesome clothing. Just want to shout out and support all the clothing that they do as well. Just truly awesome. And then also, I want to talk about Ghost Hunt Apparel. Ghost Hunt Apparel and I have been kind of shooting it back and forth for a while. I love them. I love their clothing. It's always comfortable. It's always great. I do want to give them a shout out. Please head over, check them out. You can check out my favorite stuff on their page as well as one of their ambassadors. And then, of course, to my incredible producer, Woody, with Media Squatch, to the entire team, thank you for an incredible year. This has just been an amazing ride, and I am so looking forward to 2026. There are also Get Weird t-shirts out now that you can also go check out within the website. Media Squatch also makes a bunch of really great shirts. They had some great Halloween ones this year and some great Christmas ones, and who knows what will come in the new year with the creativity behind the team of Media Squatch. But that is my ramble for now. Enjoy the rest of this 2025 that we have. A week left as we step in, less than a week, as we step into 2026. Have an amazing new year, everybody, and I will talk and hear. No, I will just talk because I don't get to hear anything from you unless you email me. So I will talk to each and every one of you in 2025.